It's strange how life can change in the blink of an eye. 1 minute, everything feels steady, predictable, normal. Then, without warning, you're caught in a storm you never saw coming. For me, that storm hit on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in our neighborhood, Maple Grove. It wasn't a freak accident or natural disaster. It wasn't even something most people would consider extraordinary. But it was devastating, and it nearly cost my son his life. The very organization meant to keep our community safe and orderly, the Maple Grove Homeowners Association, almost killed my son. My boy, Liam, is 7 years old. He has cystic fibrosis, a condition that makes every single breath an uphill battle. If you've ever known someone with CF, you know how relentless it is. Liam relies on an oxygen machine. Without it, his lungs struggle and his body starts to fail. We've always done everything we can to keep him safe: generators, backup tanks, redundant systems. We thought we were ready for anything. But nothing could have prepared us for what happened that day. The HOA decided to shut off power to parts of Maple Grove for routine maintenance. No warning, no heads up, just silence, then darkness. When the power cut out, so did Liam's oxygen concentrator. At first, I thought it was a glitch, maybe a blown fuse. I scrambled, checking connections, flipping switches. My hands shook as I tried to restart the machine. Nothing. The room was silent except for Liam's labored breathing. He clutched at his chest, his little body desperate for air that wasn't coming. His lips turned pale, his fingers twitching as he gasped. I could feel my heart splitting in two. I snatched up my phone, my fingers fumbling over the numbers. 911. My son's not breathing. Please hurry. I screamed into the phone, tears blurring my vision. By the time the paramedics arrived, Liam had slipped unconscious. Watching them work on him in our living room, their faces tight with focus, was the most terrifying moment of my life. They got him stable enough to move, but as they loaded him into the ambulance, his face was pale, his body limp. My world was crumbling. How could this happen? How could they be so careless? Why didn't anyone warn us? That night, sitting alone in the hospital waiting room while Liam lay in his sterilized ICU bed, something inside me snapped. My fear turned to rage, and my rage hardened into resolve. I wasn't just angry, I was determined. If the HOA didn't care about the lives in our community, I was going to make sure they understood the price of that indifference. I didn't know how, not yet, but I knew I wasn't letting this go. For days after that, I didn't sleep. While Liam recovered, I sat by his bed, watching his chest rise and fall, thinking, plotting. It wasn't revenge I wanted, not exactly. I wanted justice. I wanted them to feel powerless, to understand the helplessness I felt as I watched my son fight for every breath. I started by learning who was responsible, who had signed off on cutting the power. At first glance, the Maple Grove HOA looked like any other neighborhood board: boring meetings, petty squabbles. But underneath, there was a group of people who had more power than they should have and no sense of accountability. There were 5 board members: Evelyn Harper, the president and self-proclaimed queen of Maple Grove; her husband, Douglas, who liked to throw around his law degree at meetings. Then there was Leonard Walsh, a retired accountant who treated the budget like a weapon; Carla Monroe, a realtor who owned half the rentals in the neighborhood; and finally, Ethan Brooks, a tech investor who acted like he was smarter than all of us. They weren't just neighbors, they were landlords, property owners, people who saw houses as dollar signs instead of homes. That's when the idea hit me. If I wanted to hit them where it hurt, I'd go after their money, their properties, their security blanket. Buying property isn't cheap, especially not in Maple Grove. My husband, James, and I weren't rich. We lived paycheck to paycheck like most people. But desperation makes you creative. I sold everything we didn't need: furniture, jewelry, even our second car. I took out loans, maxed out credit cards, borrowed from family, and emptied our emergency fund. It felt reckless, terrifying, but I reminded myself why I was doing it: for Liam. Once I had enough, I started small. Through a lawyer and a fake name, I bought one of Leonard Walsh's duplexes. He didn't even realize who was behind it until I showed up with an eviction notice. "Congratulations," I said, handing him the paper. "You're out." He was stunned. "You can't do this." "Oh, I can," I replied. "You didn't read the fine print." "TSK." Leonard scrambled, but there was nothing he could do. Within weeks, he was bleeding money, and I was renting those units to families at affordable rates. Next was Carla. She owned a row of townhouses. When I made an offer through a proxy, she jumped at it, thinking she was unloading a problem. She had no idea she was handing me the keys to her kingdom. I evicted her tenants and raised rents except for the families who had been kind to us over the years. They stayed. Ethan Brooks was next. He panicked as word spread about the mysterious buyers snapping up properties. One day, he approached me outside the community gym. "Whatever you're doing," he said, voice shaking, "don't come after me. I'll sell cheap." I gave him a cold smile. "Half price," I said. He handed over the deeds the next day. The Queen of Maple Grove, Evelyn Harper, didn't scare easily. She tried to smear me, accusing me of harassment, manipulating the market, exploiting loopholes. She even tried to rally the neighborhood against me. "You're destroying Maple Grove," she shouted during one meeting. "No," I said calmly. "You did that the moment you decided a schedule mattered more than my son's life." I had recordings proof that Evelyn had brushed off concerns about the power outages. When I played them during an HOA meeting, the room went dead silent. "Flip the switch," Evelyn's voice said coldly on the recording. "If anyone complains, we'll deal with it later." She was finished. The board crumbled. One by one, they resigned. The Maple Grove HOA dissolved. What came next was slow, steady work. We rewrote the neighborhood bylaws, removed ridiculous fines and petty rules. We let people plant gardens, decorate their homes, and live without fear. The properties I bought became homes for families who needed them. Rents were fair, maintenance was prompt, and a percentage of the income funded scholarships, medical supplies, and legal aid for residents. No one noticed the changes at first. But one day, Liam said, "Mom, it feels happier here now." It was. Maple Grove wasn't perfect, but it was a community again. Months later, sitting on our porch, I realized I hadn't just fought for my son, I'd fought for something bigger. I didn't set out to destroy lives. I set out to protect one. And along the way, I discovered a truth that will stay with me forever. Real power doesn't come from control. It comes from giving people freedom. Maple Grove started as a battleground. Now it's home. And that's the greatest victory of all.